Okay, so last week we worked on hooks, and then we kind of clarified them at the beginning of this week. I've been thinking about something a little bit, and I wanted to go over with you guys the importance of being able to write. Sometimes it gets easy to say, oh my goodness, I have so many things. I am videotaping, yeah. I have so many things to go over. I have to think about the conflict. I have to think about the hook. I have to think about the theme. And I'm about to add to that. Next week, we're going to have another topic. And the next week, we're going to have another topic. And it's very easy to have all these topics and to think, oh my goodness, it's too many things. I can't do it all. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the joy of writing, okay? Because it's easy sometimes to get confused and to lose the joy of writing. Next week, we're going to talk about story structure, and it's going to be pretty dense. It's going to be 2 to 4 lessons. We'll have to see how you guys do based on the homework assignments. But this week, I just want to talk about the joy of story. So I want you guys to think of something, anything. I'd like a good hook on your story. Otherwise, I don't care. I just want you to write a story. That's your assignment for this one. So when you guys saw me yesterday, we were sitting doing math or something, and I said, oh my goodness, I just had an idea for a story, right? And what did I do? I ran over and I whipped out a piece of paper and I set it down, and I grabbed a pen and I started writing. And how long did I write, Dora?
For like 30 minutes.
I didn't write for 30 minutes.
It was like 5
minutes. But I filled up an entire page, right? And if I brought my page out now and showed you, it would be the first half of the page was me actually writing a scene. So it started off with dialogue and characters and where they were and what their thoughts were. And the second half of the page was sort of a description of what would happen in the rest of the chapter, because I wanted to capture my excitement and the ideas that I'd had on how something would start. And that way, when I come back to that story, when I have time, I took that 5 minutes to sit down and just write that down real quick before I forgot it. I can come back to that page and say, oh, this is how I thought the scene would start. And this is what I thought needed to happen during that chapter, okay? And I kind of sketched that out and sat it down. Why do you think I took the 5 minutes and a piece of paper when I don't write on paper? I write on my laptop, right? Why do you think I took the time right then while we were in the middle of doing homeschool and I was working on math?
Because you could forget it and you have the joy.
Yes, because something had hit me and I had said, ooh, this is exciting and I want to do it. One of the most important things that I learned at a writing conference when I was just starting writing, there was a guy who said, he was talking, his name he's an agent, and his name is Donald Moss, okay? And he's a really, really famous, very well-known agent who's written several books about writing. And one of the things that he said that really, really stuck with me is he was talking to one of the people who was there, and they said, well, I'm kind of stuck on this scene. I don't want to write it. And so I get to this point, and I don't want to write anything else once I get there. And they said, we don't know what we're supposed to do about that. And he said, probably if you don't want to write a scene, you should cut that scene. And they said, well, no, it's important. And he said, it's probably not important. Because remember, we'll talk about this. I've talked to you guys a little bit about it. We'll talk about it more. There's showing something and there's telling something. So anytime I'm sitting down to write a story, I can decide, do I tell them his mom died? Or do I show his mother dying in this scene? Sometimes something should just be told. His mom died. Or you should just find out in the next chapter that his mother died. And how do you find out? He's at the funeral, or he's talking to a friend, or he's completely freaking out on his teacher and she doesn't know why, but you hear in his thoughts that there's a bunch of different ways to portray this. You're going to have to decide in each of these scenes, even if something important happens, sometimes it should be told and not shown. Sometimes things need to be shown for the story. One of the great ways to gauge whether it needs to be told on just like mention it and don't write that scene, or whether you need to show it in a scene is, does it give you joy to write it? Maybe it's a sad scene. So I don't necessarily mean, are you happy? Not every scene in your book has to be happy. When I say, does it give you joy to write it? I mean, are you excited? Like you got to grab that paper and write that thing down. If you are excited, the people reading it will probably be excited. If there's a scene that you're like, good gosh, this needs to happen in the plot, but it's so boring, I just don't want to write it down, cut it. And then figure out later how to bridge that gap in your story. Work in information in another chapter or scene, whatever. If it is a chapter, now if it's so harrowing, what does harrowing mean?
You don't like
It's sad. It makes me so sad. If it's just harrowing, but you feel like it needs to be told, that's a little different. If you just feel sorry for your character because you're raking him across the coals, that maybe you just need to suck it up. I've spent plenty of chapters where I was bawling as I wrote, okay? But I was still excited to write that scene because I thought, oh my goodness, I'm plumbing the depths of what's going on with this person, like Whitney is my husband, you guys' dad. He'll come in sometimes and be like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I'm like, shit, died. But I'm still writing. I gotta write it, right? I need to get it down. That's different, okay? If you're just saying, I'm sad for them, suck it up, Buttercup, and write that scene, okay? But if you're saying, goodness, this is so boring. I've tried to write this chapter like 5 times, but everything else is more interesting than this chapter. There's a cardinal outside, the pool waterfall is turned on, and someone's clicking a pen in the other room. Oh my goodness. Hey, the fan isn't moving. I should turn the fan on. Don't write the scene. Cut the scene, skip it. We'll figure out how to work in the information later. Make sense? So this week's prompt is, I want you to use what we did before. I want you to come up with a good hook for a story. And then I just want you to write that story. I don't want you to worry if you feel like this story doesn't have a theme. Oh no, there's no choice they have to make. The conflict is poor. That's fine. I want you to write a story, and I want it to be 1 to 2 pages at a minimum. If it's 5 pages because you're having such a great time writing it, fabulous. If it's only 1 or 2 pages, that's okay. But I want you to try and write something that seems fun, and I just want you to write it, okay? Because I don't want us to lose in the process of learning about hooks, in the process of learning about conflict. And next week, we're going to hit structure. And I want you guys to keep in mind that writing should be fun. Above all things, it should be fun for your reader. And for it to be fun for your reader, it needs to be fun for you. When we're talking about the mechanics, that part may not be fun. When I'm showing you how to write and how to do dialogue, which we'll get into after story structure, okay? When I'm talking about the prose, what do I mean when I say prose?
The pros are like the good things.
Well, yes, there's pros and cons, but when I say prose, I'm not talking about P-R-O-S, like pros and cons, good and bad. I'm talking about prose, P-R-O-S-E, and that means the actual physical writing. So when I'm looking at the words and the mechanics of how the words are strung together, that part might be irritating to you. You may say, I don't want to have to think about the tenses and how things are written and the description. I just want to write. Okay, that's fine. That part may be painful. But the writing, the story itself should be fun. So this week's prompt is write something fun. Don't forget the joy of writing. And if a scene is boring or you don't like it, skip it and do the next scene. The thing that you're writing should be fun. Now, you may find that it's going to be more fun if you have conflict. You may find that it's going to be more fun if you have a good hook, because those are things that propel the story forward. And in a story, you need motion, you need activity, you need something happening, you need some kind of problem, or you don't have much to write about. So you may find that the joy of writing is stronger when you have those things we've talked about. Great. But I don't want us to get bogged down and not enjoy the writing. Okay. So this day's assignment is to find the joy in writing and write a story that you think is fun. Okay. Oh, so for the book report, for Tuesday that's due, the number 2 thing that you're going to write, I want you to, it's going to have 2 parts, sorry, but I want you to identify the hook again. So I want you to tell me, hey mom, the story hook was blah, blah, blah. And then I also want you to write, what was fun for you? Now this is going to kind of feed into part 3, because number 3 on the book report is, what did you think about the book? But I want to know what you thought was fun about that book. What made you think, gosh, this would have been a great scene to write? And if you can, identify any chapters or scenes you think they should have deleted because you were bored. So if you're reading through it and you say, this is really, really good, but oh my goodness, for 10 pages, she went on and on about the color of the sky. Or she spent a bunch of time talking about an origami folding project she did, and I was super bored, or whatever. Point that out, because that's somewhere where maybe they should have been like, there's not a lot of joy in this scene, and it should be cut. Okay.